Hey everybody, another episode of Why Me. I think I need to make this clear every so often. I tell you the stories, you might say, of my life, and a lot of them I'm not covering, I forget them or whatever. And they sometimes sound interesting, but they're very small moments in time. There's a lot of time in between where my mind isn't working good at all. And I'm bringing that up partially because my counselor said to me, well, it sounds like you had some good times like when you were in college. Well, if being high and drunk is a good time, I guess when I was high and drunk, I had a good time, but even then, a lot of times I really didn't fit in. So, nah. A lot of this is just the stuff that happens in between all the other time that I'm lost and confused. So I said I would talk about the episode I had up there, well, a couple episodes up at work. I'm gonna just use this whole episode to talk about some of the partying I did, which was basically cruising around drinking. So anyway, when I was working up there, my first place I ever worked, and this was on the second time around, I had the guys all, on every Friday, the owner would buy a case of beer, and it's kind of funny. At first we drank, started a half hour before quitting time, and then it was an hour, and then it was an hour and a half. It was not safe. We were drinking and running machines. Big mistake. Second place I worked up in Hanover, everybody would go out and get drunk at lunchtime. And I mean, the office people were sitting on one side of the bar, it's a horseshoe-shaped bar, and on the other side sat all the workers, and they would just pound beers until it was time to go back to work. And to leave that bar and rush back and punch in before, the afternoon session, you might say, started. Luckily, I got smart and I quit doing that. So anyway, these guys are always talking about how they used to get drunk. And the one guy in particular talked about the whiskey he would drink and things like that. And so one time I decided I'm going to see how much of a real partiers they were. And so I had the trunk of my car has 62 Impala. So I had a big ass trunk, but anyway, I had a nice size cooler in there all iced up with beer. So when our case of beer ran out there, I would open up my trunk. They didn't know this, but I also had 2 half gallons of whiskey, Southern Comfort and Jack Daniels. And so when these guys started talking about how they used to drink, I backed my car up to the back door of the building and popped open the trunk, and I said, well, now we're going to see how you really drank. Of course, they all were laughing and carrying on, and we didn't drink that much, but I drank too much, of course. I went on home, and afterwards, we were really toasted. And I proceeded to, eat my supper and then go out and run around that night. And I could remember, letting people drink the whiskey and stuff like that. In fact, I remember one guy drinking about a quarter bottle. Well, he drank Yeah, about a quarter bottle of the Southern Comfort. Well, he dropped over right there. That was the end of him. And later on, I wake up next morning and I'm in my bed. I don't remember getting there. I then was talking to my brother, and he says, "Yeah, I saw you going through town around 2 o'clock in the morning," which that's my usual time to go home. No later than 2, I go home. And I said, "What, I was heading home?" He says, "No, you were heading the other way." So, my first blackout. Maybe something not to brag about too much. Another time when I was up there, I had gotten a friend of mine a job, and it was Friday or it was whatever day, and he wanted cigarettes, and so we went to the 7-Eleven, but that was in Pennsylvania. It sold beer, and I wanted to get a quart of beer, and I didn't have enough money. I tried to convince him to use his cigarette money for beer money, and he wouldn't do it. So while he was in there, I dug through the cars to see if I could find any money. I got enough money. I was actually short like 5 or 10 cents. That's all I needed, right? I'm backing out of our parking space, and the car beside us is trying to get started, and it's not starting. And I stop, and I put the car back in drive, and I pull back up in there, and my friend's saying, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to buy a beer." He says, "What are you doing?" He doesn't understand at all. I get out of the car and I walk over to this lady's trying to get her car started. I said, "You want some help getting your car started?" She says, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing wrong." I said, "Your car's pretty much stock, right?" She goes, "Yes." So she says, "There's nothing done to it." I said, "All right." I said, "Hold your foot down on the pedal all the way, on the gas pedal, and do not let it up. Don't pump it. Don't do anything. Just hold it all the way down and crank the engine over until it starts. Okay? Don't lift it up." That's how you unflooded a car back then, once they had these automatic chokes and all. And she did that, and it started. And then I said, "Now, can I ask you a favor?" She said, "What's that?" I said, "Could I have a quarter?" I just don't have quite enough money to get myself a quart of beer. And of course she gave me a quarter, and I went in and got my beer. He says, "How the hell did you get your beer?" I said, "I told her if she didn't give me a quarter that I wouldn't help her get her car started." "You did not." I said, "No, I didn't. I just asked for the quarter after I got her started." I said, "But that's why I pulled back in, because I thought I could make a buck, get the money I needed to buy the beer." And of course he thought that was hilarious. Another time, one night, I had my own slingshot in my car, and I was sitting there waiting for some guys in a parking lot that was made of stone, and across the street was a transformer on a pole, and I thought to myself, "Wonder if I can hit that with some stones." And so I got my slingshot out and I started shooting it, and I was hitting it on a regular basis. I was doing pretty good, and I was having a good time with it. Well, a week later, running around one night, heard the fire siren go off, and went up there, and here's that transformer on fire. Now, I can't say that I set it on fire, but I didn't help it at all, that's for sure. Another time, I took over the dance hall with just a couple pin joints of killer weed. I got people all wasted. In fact, we actually started, I say we, me and my brother started babysitting people that went a little wacky, and I don't feel like talking about that one. That's really not that great a thing. Another time I had taken this girl out once, called her up, she was willing to go out again with me. But I'm going to make sure I solve this problem. She won't want to go out with me after this. Anyway, I have some flakes and we smoked some, and I don't know if you know what this stuff does sometimes, but for me, this happened twice. Like on the arm wrestling, and I have all the strength, while other times it does other things. And in this case, I can't talk. I know everything's going on, I know what I'm doing, I can go anywhere, but I just can't get a word out of my mouth. And I think they have a name for that. But anyway, when we were running out around, this happened to me, and I couldn't explain it to her, and somehow we picked up a friend of mine. He is a friend, it's just it was like we didn't realize we were friends, you might say. So anyway, I'm in my parents' 64 station wagon, and I decide that I'm going to take him for a ride. Now, of course, I can't tell him what I'm going to do, and I didn't want to anyway, because I wanted to shock him. That's one of the things that I do. I have this habit of shocking people. They're not ready for what I'm so quiet, and then all of a sudden I switch, you might say. That's what it appears to them anyway. I took him on this road called Balger Road and Bumgardner Road, and it's just driving between trees. I mean, it's not a road at all. It's a dirt path and, you know, mud and everything else, and you go down this hill at about a 30-degree angle to the not down is almost 45. Then you're also leaning, and there's a bank there, and you look like you're going to hit the bank, and I just started driving, and all these trees are going by, and we're bouncing around and all over the place. And when you get to the bottom of this hill, you have to make an abrupt left, or you're just going to go right out through the trees, and you never could. Anyway, I scared the shit out of them, both of them. And when we got back to town, Greg says, I think it's time to go home. And she says, I'll go with you. I never saw her again. I didn't ever bother calling her either, but just one of my nights. Another night, I had my 62 Impala and 6 people in the car, and I come out of town, and I accelerate going down this hill, and I kick it out of gear, and I said, we're going to go in the Baptist Road at whatever speed we're going, you know, and I figured we'd slow down a good bit. I wasn't even sure we'd make it to the road before I quit drifting. But here the son of a bitch was going faster than I thought when we got there. So I got out into the left lane, and I told everybody to hang on, and just as we go in the turn, I throw it in low gear and hit the gas. You drive through a corner, you don't drift if you want to have control over it. Well, 6 people all fit in 2 spaces. So here I am driving, and I got 2 other people sitting in the driver's seat with me, and in the back seat's the same thing. Beers flying everywhere. Coming up and over this hill at the same time. Now my car's sliding that way, and I'm wheeling it back the other direction. Now I'm throwing everybody the other way. Of course, I'm smart enough, I have my seatbelt on, so I'm still in my seat, but the 2 others are now sitting over against the other door. Luckily, the door latches worked on the car, and they held. and we made it through it. But that was just another night for us running around. Another night we got tired of looking at the bushes in front of Twin Kiss because you couldn't see traffic coming. So I told him, I said, I can fix that for good. I went home and I got Pramitol. It sterilizes the ground. Now it doesn't work real fast, but there's nothing will grow for 2 years. So anyway, I sprinkled some pellets around the bottom of each of the bushes. Took a while. They died. They planted new bushes. They died. They finally just stoned the area and let it go. But now we could see. So I was helping helping people out, making the world a safer place. I guess I'll end with this one. Not sure how I should look at this one, as funny or not. One night we were talking about building a mailbox for my mother, and for my parents, because people kept smashing it. But we didn't have any material to make it with. And a friend of mine says, you know what, out at Worthington Pump they got pipe. We can probably find a piece out there. It's just out there laying around. So we went out there that night. It was pretty cold out. And in fact, this pipe had froze to the ground. And there was a piece there, wasn't really big or anything, and looked like scrap to us. So we couldn't pick it up because it was frozen in the ground. So my brother took his truck and drove right into it and broke it loose, and we grabbed 2 pieces from what I can remember. And then we started on a tear looking for steel. I don't know why, but anyway, I had been given a key to a storage room over at our high school, so we went over there, and here the key worked to unlock the lock to the storage room, and we grabbed a couple pieces of steel out of there. Then I remembered seeing some flat plate down at the Votech, and I told him about it. I said, if we can get over the fence, we can get that, because that's not enough. So anyway, we went down there to Westminster and jumped the fence, and had barbed wire, so we threw a blanket over the top of it. We got over it. I can remember the one plate was so heavy that when we slid it underneath the fence, I chose to leave my fingers stay under it, because we could have never picked it back up off the ground if it was laying flat on the ground. And there was only 3 of us, so one would have to get over top the fence and help the other one. So I just said, well, I'll just leave my hand under there. Well, what's the guy do? He steps on top of the plate. It didn't hurt that much, but anyway. So we got all this steel, and we're running out of gas. And I told my brother, yeah, well, I gotta pee. And he says, well, we'll go down here. I think there's a gas station open. Well, we went there. It wasn't open. I couldn't believe he's running out of gas, when the fact is we have all the gas in the world sitting at home. I mean, we have for the farm equipment. We got 3 gas tanks, and he couldn't fill his truck up before he left. So anyway, I finally decided I had to pee no matter what. It's a step side pickup, so I just got out the door, around, stepped on the side. He's driving towards our house to get gas, and I go to the back of the pickup thinking that would be the best place, and when I start peeing, it just starts spraying all over me. So I stop and turn around, and I go up to the front, and I start peeing. It just starts spraying all over me, and I kept trying to figure out what to do. I finally gave up, and I just pissed. I had piss all over me. So we got home. We then couldn't bring the metal home because my father would ask where we got it. So we stored it up in my friend's house. But then one day we have to take scrap metal to the scrap yard. Now we got our way to get it home. We take the scrap metal up there. We sell the scrap metal. We then come home and we put that metal on there, and we go home with it and throw the metal off, and Pop says, well, how much you get at the scrap yard? And said, well, we didn't actually get anything. We ended up having to spend, I don't know, $23 to get this metal. Now we got $40-some for what we took up there. So he pulls his wallet out and gives us another $23. So we got $60-some or whatever, you know, for this metal and beer money. So that's how running around in Tawnytown worked, at least for us. It was our typical time, and yeah, that's what we did when we were young and dumb and full of cum. Oh, now there's stories about women. Well, a couple of them. Next one. Talk to you later.